Hello, dear learners. Today we're going to see another interesting poem. It is the poem "The Stone," written by Wilfred Wilson Gibson. So this poem is, a narrative poem, and it is in the form of a story. It's in the form of a narration by the poet. So let's find out about the poet. So Wilfred Wilson Gibson was an war poet born in England on 2nd October 1878. 2nd October is the birthday of Gandhiji. So another great poet was also born on the same day. And we see he was closely associated with Rupert Brooke, who is primary voice of the war poets. So we find that his works, especially his poetry, the earliest ones were published under Mountain Lovers in 1902, and he has also published his first play, Daily Bread, which was produced in 1910. And Gibson was also part of the army, the British Army to be specific. And unlike other war poets who were writing about officers and about the loss of officers or the officer friends, here we had a poet who was talking about the ordinary foot soldier. So even after the wartime, after the First World War, we find that Gibson has written a lot of poems and plays which are listed in the slide. For example, Within Four Walls, The Island Stag, Collected Poems, or some of the other publications of his poem. And he died in the year 1962, 26th May. So here today we are going to see a poem. This is not a war poem, but it has got a different sort of emotion that is emulated by the poet. So let's go into the poem. So the poem starts off with the poet recalling an incident wherein a woman approaches him and she asks him if he could cut a stone for him, a headstone to set above his head. So this him, who this woman is asking for, we are not very sure. So she asks if he would cut a stone for him, and then he narrates. It's like a flashback where the poet says that 3 days back, a splinter rock had struck this particular woman's lover dead, and he was actually somebody who was carefree, and he was walking on the quarry. He was careless because there was a warning call that they're going to trigger the rocks and they're going to break it, but still this boy, this lover boy, just loitered over there. And while the shot was fired, one of the rocks that just came and hit him, and he died on the spot. So it was a flash, a shock, a rumbling fall, and he just fell down lifeless as a lifeless heap. The poet uses the word lifeless heap. There was no chances, there was no second chance. Instant death had struck this lover. So he lay as a stone, and still as any stone he lay, with eyes that saw the end of all. So, for this youthful boy who was in love, everything had ended just because of a splinter rock, just because of his careless behavior of not heeding to the warning call. And later we are again transposed to what has happened after that. We see that the poet wanted to gently, reveal this sad news to the woman. But unfortunately, we find that there was one person who was very careless, who just went and told about the demise of this young boy to the girl's father. And when she heard it, she became lifeless. So the lines go this way you know uh, there was this person who had flung the door open, and he came and he had struck her lover dead for her, had struck the girl's heart dead in her, had struck life lifeless at a word. So the word struck is used in different forms over here by the poet. It struck not only the lover dead, the words struck the girl's heart dead and made even her lifeless. So, the word lifeless is a lot of play of words that the poet has used over here. Lifeless heap is used to describe or denote the young boy who had, instantly died because of the splinter rock. And over here, the words that make this girl lifeless. So over there it was the rock. Here it was the words of this, this person, the messenger who had come and revealed information about the death of her lover. So here she becomes lifeless, and she dropped it at, he just dropped it at her feet, and then he just hurried and he just went away, and he didn't even know that she had heard it. And then what happened was, and when I came, that is when the poet came, we find that this woman, he found the woman standing and she had turned into stone. So here the reference to stone is given again, where the woman turns into stone. And though she did not speak anything, he instantly gets to know that this girl is already known about the death of her lover. So moving forward, we find that the poet, goes on to talk about, because her heart was dead. This girl's heart had died. She did not sigh. She did not mourn. The boy's mother had, was weeping and howling, but this girl did not cry at all. Her lover slept, but she did not sleep. 3 days and 3 nights she was just like that. 3 days, 3 nights. But everything was same for her. There was no movement. There was no reaction. She was just in shock, utter shock at the loss of her lover. She didn't stir, she didn't speak, she didn't blink her eye, she didn't close her eye. From sunset to sunrise, from dawn to evenfall, she was tearless. She was just a stone. She had turned into stone. And on the fourth night, we see there's a change in this girl, because slowly after this, poet had come back, she approaches him and she asks him this question, which the poet has started this whole poem off with. And will you cut a stone for him? She said these lines, and then after that, she sank into a chair. She just followed this, this poet, sure that he would do it, and she follows him and she goes sits with him, and her eyes were just fixed. It was just fixed. It was just staring. It was lifeless. It was thoughtless. It was emotionless. She was in just a state of shock, and we find that she, goes on following this worksman, this poet who carves out tombstones, and he had also agreed to do it. And he talks about her eye, those still grey eyes that followed me, the eyes that plucked the heart from me, the eyes that sucked the breath from me. So her eyes were, although emotionless, they did a lot of work. They were grey eyes, it followed him. It plucked his heart, it just hit him at his heart. It sucked the breath. And it was just this deep stare that she gave, and it curdled the blood in him. The eyes, they cut me to the bone and cut my marrow like cold steel. So her gaze was so strong that he could not move away from it. He could not disagree to what she had asked. And she was just following him. She was like a woman on a mission, and her gaze was fixed. This fixed gaze shows that she just wanted the task, what she had taken up, to be completed. And then we find an and he rose and then he started working on it, and as he started working day and night, a candle night, she just kept accompanying this worksman as he kept doing his work, and she was like a ghost. She came, she sat in a chair, she watched. Her eyes were aflame. It was like, just eagerly awaiting for this task to complete. So she was like this person who would just keep following him without any break. And her eyes, she eyed every stroke as he kept working on it, as he used his hands to carve out the stone, to do the tombstone for her, dead lover. She just looks at him, but she does not utter one word. She doesn't murmur. There's just quietness everywhere. And her eyes just followed his hands, how he was. His hands were training, but she didn't speak anything. There was just silence, silence, silence. And as with every stroke he chiseled and he cut, death did cut deeper into her heart. It was like death was also, cutting something in her heart. The two of us were chiseling together, I and death. So here we see that, it is not just the physical action which the poet is doing of cutting the stone, but death is also at work over here. It's like how he is chiseling, death is also in work, death is also chiseling. It's just chiseling or cutting out her. And at length finally the job was done, And as he laid his mallet down, she just got up and she just went away. She just told his name with a sigh. She just opened the door and she went. But here lies the twist. The last two lines of the poem gives a twist. Next day, I lay there late alone to cut her nail upon the stone. This is such a sad line to write because he had worked day and night to cut the tombstone off the lover, and the next day, unfortunately, his girl also dies, and he goes on the task of cutting, the tombstone for this girl. So those are sad lines. So throughout the poem, we see that the poet is trying to show the grief that is there, the wordless grief, the emotionless grief that this young girl goes through. And we also see that he feels for this girl. He's able to understand what she's going through. He tries to find out. He relates to her emotions, and unfortunately, it is true love. Once the lover died, even this girl also gives up her life. She's given up all her hope of living, and with that, the poem ends. So this poem also can be read from bottom to up, and it gives a different picture. So that would be an interesting read for the listeners. And moving on to the different aspects of the poem, the word stone has a lot of multiple layered meanings. So the stone first, its reference is given to how the stone is the reason for the death of the young girl. Second, when the girl hears the news, she herself becomes a stone. She becomes lifeless. Third stone is the tombstone, which this poet starts to work on. So that's the third stone. And the fourth is the tombstone, which the girl, after she is dead, he gets to work on. Tombstone for the girl. So the stone has multiple meanings. The image of the stone is used in different ways by the poet in this poem. So there's a lot of sadness, there's grief, there is sympathy that has been employed by Wilfred in this poem. And finally, the poem finishes with this resounding theme that all is lost when true love is lost. I hope all of you enjoyed listening. Thank you.